Welcome to Inspiring Perspectives, a podcast by thinkPARALLAX featuring fresh takes and bold ideas for the real-world sustainability challenges and solutions at some of the world's most respected brands and companies. I'm your host, Derek Sabori, and this is what sustainability sounds like today. Hey, Andrew, thank you so much for being here on the Inspiring Perspectives show. I'm so glad we caught you because I know you're so busy. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, you bet. Well, you are the CEO of an organization called As You Sow, and you guys are doing some great work around shareholder advocacy. We're talking today about the idea of investing your values, how to harness your shareholder power for lasting change. So I guess let's just start, if you can. Tell us a little bit about the organization, the work you do, your role. What does it look like, kind of a day in the life for you?
Sure. So As You Sow is a 501c3. We're a nonprofit. We were founded in 1992. So we're 34 years old. And we've been working on corporate accountability for 34 years now. And basically, at its core, we engage companies. We actually have relationships with hundreds of companies. Last year, we sat down with 210 companies. And we brought them data and research that we had done and talked to them about how they could reduce material risk for all their stakeholders, actually how they could improve their companies. And so of those, 99 of them said thank you and said, we're going to go about applying all these things we just learned. Some of them didn't, 111 didn't. And so we filed what are called shareholder resolutions. These are very formal resolutions that are filed 6 months ahead of the annual meeting. And it means that you get to have that conversation with all the shareholders, and then the shareholders vote. And once they vote, it's non-binding. But when you sit down with a company and go, 30% of your shareholders think this is important, or 50% think this is important, or in many cases, even 6% leads to the companies to really think it through a little bit more deeply and realize this is actually good for the company, good for all our stakeholders, and they can implement it for change. So of those 111, 51 of them said once we filed the resolution, if we withdraw it, then they would take action. We said, okay. And the rest went to a vote. And then after the votes, we sat down with the companies, and pretty much all of them came to realize that what we were talking about was really smart, good business.
So great summary of it all. And it seems really impactful. I'd love to kind of hear your perspective on this angle. Why shareholders? Why kind of working your way through shareholders and going about creating change this way? I mean, I think I have an idea of it, but walk me through how you landed in this perspective area.
It's kind of capitalism 101. I mean, the bottom line is the boards of directors of every public company report to their shareholders. So we have a fiduciary duty to make sure that we have oversight of the board. So if we see a company that is harming themselves by, let's just say they don't have very much diversity in their ranks. Well, we just published a study a couple of months ago. We looked at 1,600 companies over 5 years, looked at all their diversity. They published these annual reports on diversity. So we looked at over 1.5 million data points. And what we saw is that companies with greater diversity in their management outperformed financially on 8 key financial metrics, including stock price over 10 years, return on capital, return on equity. So when you show the companies this and say, why are we not optimizing our company? Why are we not competitive? Well, they might not have thought about it in that way. And so we help them to think about it in this way. But that's our job as shareholders, to help the board think through their responsibility, because they have oversight of the executives and they set incentive packages to make sure the executives execute a strategy. So it's really capitalism 101, just to help the companies that you own to optimize their operations.
And obviously you've been around for more than 30 years, so it's been effective, right? But what's been most effective? Give me some stories of success that you've had, or wins that you've had that you'd like to share.
So, I mean, we'll give you an example of, for instance, we do a lot of work on ocean plastics. So we look at just the whole cycle from where natural gas and oil are extracted at the wellheads. There's a great deal of methane that's released in the pipeline. There's even more leakage. Then it gets to the petrochemical plants, and now you've got the feedstocks going into making plastics. These are called nurdles, and they spill nurdles. And then, of course, single-use plastics gets disposed of in the ocean. which causes, it's basically just destroying the ecosystems for marine life. So we looked at this and we sat down with a couple of companies and we talked to, say, Starbucks, and they use a lot of styrofoam cups. And we said, well, why are you using styrofoam cups as opposed to cups that are made out of recycled paper? So we don't have to also cut down virgin forests, and that this would be good for the Starbucks brand. So they looked at it and they said, yeah, like our customers would really prefer this. So they switched away from styrofoam. Same thing. So once they did, McDonald's, we went to them and said the same, Dunkin' the same. And so all in all, 3 billion styrofoam cups are not being produced this year because as shareholders, we saw that this was an opportunity for all of these companies to improve their brands and really satisfy their customer base. So again, these are opportunities to improve the brand, to improve the company. So that's really what we're trying to do, is find these win-win situations.
Do you find that shareholders, do they come and find you, or do you always kind of come to them saying, hey, this company that you've got shares in, that you own, has these issues that need to be dealt with, and we're informing you? Or do you find that they reach out to you saying, hey, Andrew, we need some help. Can you help us?
So we start by doing research. So we will start by, for instance, on racial justice. We grade 3,000 companies on 61 key performance indicators that define racial justice and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're publishing these reports, we're publishing these scorecards all the time. So shareholders who own shares in the companies that are getting not such great scores, they'll come to us and say, you guys are issue experts. You've analyzed these companies. A lot of times we've met with the companies. We'd like to file a resolution. We say, okay. And so they authorize us to file on their behalf. And then we act as an issue expert, for them.
And what kind of challenges do you see, though, are mostly, I would imagine the challenges then that you're facing are coming back from the companies. You're going to get often, I would imagine, resistance. Are they pushing back hard on you? Shareholders, what are the challenges that you guys face in your organization?
Well, like I said, last year with 210 companies, 70% of them essentially thanked us for our research and said, we're going to go become better companies. 30% were more resistant and said, no, let's take this to a vote. And once we got a vote and then we sat down with them, most of them said, this is actually a good idea. There are a few that are resistant. They tend to be, oil and gas companies tend to be a little bit more resistant. They seem to be determined we feel like they're heading toward a cliff at 100 miles an hour, and we're trying to get them to transition to become viable in a carbon-constrained world. We look at it and we go, look, the internal combustion engine is clearly going to be obsolete in a few years, and all of our revenue is based on selling gasoline, that we need to adjust this. So it's been a decade now trying to get these companies just to adjust their business plan for a different business model. We're trying to get them to be, profitable 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. But the attitude of the boards, the attitude of these companies is really like, what can I say? It's like talking to Blockbuster when Netflix, they're just not going to listen, they don't seem to be listening, but we keep trying. It's like going to Blockbuster and saying, hey, this whole internet thing is going to be happening, and maybe you should adjust your business model. Or going to Kodak and saying digital photography is probably something you should be investing in as opposed to just film. But Kodak said, no, sticking with film. They went out of business. Blockbuster. So this is the problem that we see with the oil companies, is they are, we believe, heading toward just not a good financial outcome for shareholders. And so we are trying to get them to redirect their energies.
What about all the other industries? How would you say things have evolved and changed in terms of board perception, board understanding, leadership, executive leadership understanding of all of the issues that we're talking about when we talk about sustainability and ESG? Is there a better understanding and appreciation for that future that you're talking about? You talked about the oil and gas industry. Other industries in general, though, what would you say is sort of the vibe, if you will?
We believe that the markets actually have already shifted toward justice and sustainability. And this happened sort of in the 2016 timeframe. And that resulted in 2019, all of the companies in the Business Roundtable, 181 major companies, including Exxon, JP Morgan, all the big companies, signed what's called the new purpose of a corporation. And what this is, it said that the ideas of Milton Friedman, which is just dump in the commons, have slavery in your supply chain, just completely do anything it takes to make as much money as possible.
Shareholder primacy, right?
Yeah, that's what they call it. But it doesn't quite work that way, because what happens is that when you dump in the commons, you get lawsuits that harms your company. When you have slavery in your supply chain, you get customers who go, I don't want to buy from that company. When you abuse your employees, they quit, and you've got to pay all money to replace them, and no one wants to work for you. So it actually, shareholder primacy was leading to, the world that we have now. Climate change, ocean plastics, shredded social fabric. And so all these companies got together and said, we really need to rethink this. And what they came out with is the new purpose of a corporation, which says stakeholder capitalism. You take care of your employees. You take care of your customers. You don't put toxins in your food if you're a food company. You don't poison your customers. You take care of the communities where you operate. You take care of your supply chain. Very, very important. And therefore, your shareholders will be optimized. So all 5 groups, stakeholder groups, will be supported. And so every company signed this in 2019, the summer of 2019. And that was really the philosophical shift. And now we're in this implementation phase. Now, what you're seeing is that there's a group of very regressive thinkers who are saying, wait a minute, what happened? We got to stop this. And they're trying to stop it. And they've launched this crusade. They gave this guy, Leonard Leo, who you may have heard of, for the Federalist Society, $1.6 billion to try to stop this market shift. But it's really like trying to hold back a tsunami. It's just not going to work. And they've been passing laws in the states, in the Republican states, like in Texas. They banned most of the banks that believe that climate change is real. And so now Texas, when they float a municipal bond, they have to pay a massive they spent like an extra $1 billion in the last year on their bonds because they can't get anyone to bid on them because they banned them all. The Texas State Pension Fund, they can't invest in diversified. So they could be losing a lot of money from people's nest eggs. So they're causing harm to their citizens to make political theater around this, to make it seem as if they can control the global markets, which they can't. And the transition to a clean energy future is happening. Why? Because it's cheaper, it's less expensive to get a kilowatt of electricity using renewables than burning fossil fuels. It's just economics.
Yeah. What have you learned in this space dealing with, and this is an interesting space to me because I've come from the in-house side, right? Working at brands. We're always making changes, working with our suppliers, working with employees, working with leadership, building out strategies. Here at thinkPARALLAX, that's what we do, helping with roadmaps and strategies, materiality, et cetera. But you're kind of approaching it from this alternative angle, if you will. What have you learned, I think, along the way in terms of just looking at the progress that we've made, the challenges that we have, how capitalism works, how organizations work, how boards work, how the system works? I don't know. Is there a way to summarize what you've learned, what your biggest takeaways are, what you would want people to know about this?
Yeah. Another piece of the puzzle is we do an analysis every month. We publish a scorecard on 6,000 mutual funds, and we aggregate them up for 401k plans. And what we discovered is there's 100 million people with $10 trillion of assets that have no idea how they're invested. And they have also given over their proxy voting to groups that vote with management 98% of the time. So I don't believe we've actually, I believe we have a form of capitalism that I call captured capitalism, which is the people who earn the money are not investing it aligned with their values, nor are they expressing their values through their votes because they've handed off all that power. So this is starting to loosen up now. People are starting to realize, well, wait a minute. If climate change is happening, if racial injustice is happening, and I'm making money from it, then I'm really complicit in it. And so, well, it's my money. I earned it. So now I need to use my power to invest aligned with my values and also to take my vote back and express it to the company that I'm not happy with the direction they're going. So I think what we're seeing is actually real capitalism starting to happen. That this whole idea of shareholder democracy is really taking root and starting to spread. And so I'm very optimistic, actually, that when people take back their power, that we can actually, well, allow the market forces to bring us into a regenerative economy that's based on justice and sustainability. That we're right in the middle of this. And again, there are these regressive forces trying to stop this from happening. And it isn't going to work, but they're doing a pretty darn good job. There's half a dozen lawsuits trying to take away shareholders' power right now.
Yeah, they're not going down without a fight.
No, the Supreme Court they could do a ruling that they could literally take away the SEC's power, and no, they're looking to like essentially attack democracy, attack capitalism. The anti-ESG movement is truly anti-business. They are trying to tell us how to think, like literally in these Republican states where they pass these laws. You're not allowed to look at risk. They tell you, do not look at risk. And if you look at risk, we're going to make it illegal for you to look at risk. So, because, I mean, ESG, this acronym, all it means, it's just a framework for assessing risk. And they're saying, don't look at risk. Now, if somebody tells you don't look at risk, there's probably something you want to look at that they don't want you to look at.
Yeah, exactly.
If they say we're going to put you in jail if you look at that risk, now you know for sure there's something that you want to really look at closely. So that is the state of affairs right now.
Andrew, you guys you're approaching it sort of from the individual shareholder, if you will. I know there's also a lot of pressure on corporations themselves in terms of how they're investing their money, where their money is being held, what those funds are being invested in as well. Do you do the same? I mean, are you always representing the individual shareholder? Are you also kind of going to the corporate leadership team and saying, hey, CFO, where is your money? Do you know where your money is? Because if you're trying to do climate work in your supply chain, but yet your money, as you said, is funding fossil fuel projects or working against the work that you're doing, what are you seeing there?
We talked to the companies about how they're invested, and it wasn't us. Another group put out a report looking at, for instance, Microsoft doing great stuff. They've taken all their data, their data farms. They're all being powered by renewables, but all the cash is being invested in fossil fuel companies and deforestation. And so they asked them the question, like the cognitive dissonance of, if this is our sustainability goals, if this is our strategy, why not apply it to everything? This is the question we keep asking about 401k plans at Amazon. Yeah. We're buying 100,000 electric vehicles. That's wonderful. We're going to be net zero 2040. Our data centers are 120% off the grid. Great, but every person who works there owns companies burning down the Amazon. So the cognitive dissonance starts to really, it just kind of hurts your brain to think about it. And if you're an employee there, you're going like, what? Why don't they apply this philosophy to everything, especially the money? And companies are starting to come around. They're starting to realize, that really does make sense also. And here's the crux of it. There's going to be a report coming out. I'm going to give you kind of a headline next week. I think we're going to be releasing this. But if Google had divested fossil fuels 10 years ago, they would have another $1 billion in their 401k plan.
Ooh.
If you look at a sustainable target date fund sitting next to the BlackRock, Vanguard, and TIAA over 5 years, it outperforms. So they're also, their employees are making less money. They're making lower returns and owning companies that are the exact opposite of their values. You just go, well, wait, why? It makes no sense whatsoever.
So you're shedding light on that, and you're bringing awareness and kind of bringing it out into the open.
Light. Well, here's the thing. In 2015, when we started fossil-free funds, the reason we did it is because, all these people were talking about divesting fossil fuels, but we discovered nobody knew what they owned. Like people were saying, I want to divest, but I have no idea what I own. So I realized that I didn't know what I owned. And in the As You Sow 401k plan, I was invested, I didn't know. And I couldn't figure it out. It's not obvious. It's not, when you go read a prospectus, it only shows you the top 10 holdings.
Yeah.
So one of our staffers wrote some code to go in and scrape it, and we did this and that and the other. Anyway, we came up just for our own little plan, our own little 401k plan. We realized, oh my gosh, we are totally invested in all the companies that we are engaging. And so brought all the staff together in the conference room and said, what does everybody think? And they're like, well, we don't want to do this. So we called up our investment advisor and said, we want to change. And they said, you can't. And so we said, oh, you're fired. And hired somebody new. And within, I guess, 2 months, we had a brand new plan, completely sustainable. This is not difficult. Just some people don't want to do it. Yeah, totally sustainable plan based on our own scoring system. And now we've actually transitioned to a new record keeper who's going to allow us to vote. We're going to have the first fully voting 401k plan. We're actually going live in just a couple of days.
Wow.
And yeah, we will be, so everyone at As You Sow will be clicking on a button that says, and we have our own voting thing called As You Vote. We actually vote for institutional, as well as we give away for free. If you're an individual that owns shares of companies and you're getting ballots in your inbox and you're looking at them, you open them up and go, I don't know how to vote this. I don't know who all these boards are and auditors and what is this? One click, set it and forget it, and you can vote the As You Vote policy, which is very ESG aligned. We vote against 80% of the CEO pay packages. We vote against about 70% of the board. We make sure there's diversity on the board. We vote for all of the pro ESG resolutions. We vote against anti-ESG resolutions. Again, one click, and this will be applied to all of your ballots. And you can customize them. You can open them up and say, they're voting against this board member. I like this board member. You can total customization and at no cost.
Wow.
Because 20% of every vote, the people just don't vote. They literally throw away their mail-in ballots. And we're saying, well, that's because it's too complicated. It's too much just. And so with one click, we want to get those 20% of people expressing their wish, expressing how they want to vote.
Great. And I know you guys you've created a lot of tools as I was digging around through your website, a lot of different tools that you've provided for people, good resources. So we'll put all those links in the resources here for listeners. If you could, Andrew, if you could wave a magic wand and sort of make it all happen and just make it so that your organization didn't need to exist, I guess, what would it look like as it relates to this topic? You know, what would this that perfect world look like where you're like, hey, our work is done. Things are working.
Well, first off, everybody who earned money would be able to invest aligned with their values easily. They'd be able to vote their proxies, express their values to the companies. And just by doing that, that would change the nature of the boards of directors, because they would be, they report to the folks who are actually owning the company and not those middlemen who just vote with management automatically. So that would change, I think, the structures of the boards, which would change the policies of the companies, including their political spending, which I think would lead to the elimination of, say, subsidies for fossil fuels, and I think would shift the political structure. So I think fundamentally you only have to do one thing, which is have actual democracy. Like, the people who earn the money get to decide how it's invested and how they vote. And I think the rest would ripple out from there, because right now we have captured capitalism and we need to free capitalism. We need to actually try capitalism. We've never tried it.
That's fascinating. How then? Okay, so then let's get to the advice portion here to get us to that future state, to that magical spot. Give me some takeaways for the audience? And I guess probably depends on who you are. If you're an individual shareholder, if you're leadership
if you're an individual, if you own shares individually, go to asyouvote.org, click on individual, click a second time, and you will be able to vote your proxies. You can do that today. Again, it's free. If it takes you more than 5 minutes, send me an email and we'll make sure you get signed up. But we have hundreds of people who do that, and it's been working really well. If you work at a company, talk to your peers. Go as a group to your 401k administrator and say, why is it that we're not applying our corporate mission to our money? And we want to change. And so what then they'll do is they will change your your 401k plan, your default option to be sustainable. And also tell them we want to do it because we want to make more money. If you go in and say we want to do it, we want to do it to make more money, and then they have to do it because it's their fiduciary duty. And so then you will be now invested sustainably, and then also say, and we want to vote our proxies for the target date fund for our whole thing. And you can have what's called pass-through voting. So those two things that you could do, which are not difficult, would literally, I often say, click your heels together, Dorothy, you're home. It's your money. You just have to tell people that you want to apply it according to your values. We've done a lot of polling. 80% of people want a livable planet.
Yeah.
80% of people want to invest in a future that their children and their grandchildren can be in. This is not rocket science. This is actually just about really basically exerting the power that you already have.
What power does the non-shareholder, the non-employee, the non-worker, what power do they have? What advice do you have for them?
Every dollar they spend, they vote. That is a vote. So if, for instance, you're deciding to buy this pair of sneakers or that pair of sneakers, go and see which company has a better racial justice score, which company has a better climate score. And when you buy those sneakers, post to their social media and say, I bought the sneakers because you have that. And post to the other company and say, I didn't buy your sneakers because you have a low score on justice. I kid you not, but 20 people do that, that will find its way to the boardroom.
Yeah.
Because of a customer or a customer who didn't buy. Express yourself through every dollar that you spend. Where you bank. Look at the companies. If you've got a credit card, if you have a debit card, does the company give loans to fossil fuel companies, or do they not? That's up to you. You determine what your values are, but look at where the loans from that bank are. And there's ratings for all this stuff on our website on asyousow.org. We have ratings and rankings for all this stuff.
Yeah. And I think what you're again shining that light on is the fact that us as individuals, as a consumer, as a purchaser, as an employee, as a shareholder, we have power. And I've seen it, to just what you said, I've seen it in action. If you send a message, even on e-commerce, saying, hey, I've got a question about the environmental or social aspects of this product. You made a claim, I was reading something, and you follow up, chances are that e-commerce customer service person probably doesn't know the answer, but then they go and start asking, and it starts going up the chain, and eventually people start hearing it, right?
So few people who make a TikTok about why you bought those sneakers. I mean, you can actually express yourself. You have a lot more. People have so much more power than they realize.
Yeah,
they have no idea, and people abdicate their power without even knowing that they have it. So, if you're a new employee at a company or you're interviewing at a company, during the interview, ask them. So, talk to me about your sustainability goals and how it applies to my 401k plan. And the person who's interviewing you is going to say, I have no idea. That's a really good question. And
they'll send it up the chain, and they'll start.
They're going to send up the chain. You're going to get the job because you're asking, and you're obviously aware.
Yeah.
So
anything,
all these things are really powerful.
Yes, I agree 100%. What outside of this, I guess, I'm interested for you, Andrew, where do you get your inspiration? Where are you getting your resources at? I mean, I imagine it's just from the daily work that you do, your interaction with the companies that you work with and your shareholders, but what feeds you in this space? Where are you getting your advice and resources from?
My team, it's amazing the people who work at As You Sow, because they are issue experts. They're literally sitting down with the biggest companies in the world and talking about these issues. And the people at the companies, it's really the core of our work is the relationships with the companies. But we sit down and we're talking to, issue expert to issue expert from the outside, inside the company. And it's highly respectful and highly professional and really trying to find solutions. So, this is about finding solutions together because, well, these companies want to succeed. All the people who work there want to be proud of their work. And so they're really, we don't look at companies as companies. We look at them as human beings that are working there, that are making a career, that are choosing to be there.
Mm. I love that. A company is just a collection of all the people that are there anyway. So it's,
Yeah. And
yeah.
they're usually very concerned about the future, very concerned about their kids. And so there's common ground there. It's a lot of people think, these shareholder advocates, it's very oppositional, and it's just not like that. I mean, I personally just met with Meta, a couple of weeks ago. I do some of these myself. Very respectful. Now, we have our very clear differences. And also, Meta is a very kind of an exceptional company because it's an authoritarian regime that Mark Zuckerberg has a 10-to-1 voting preference. So no matter what, the whole board and every shareholder could want to do something. But Mark, because he likes those things, says, no, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. So that's a problem. And so in the meetings, I say things like that. And they go, yeah, it's a problem, because they think it's a problem too.
Mm.
Right now what we're working on is, prior to the 2020 election, we met with them and we got them to stop misinformation, disinformation, hate speech from going viral. And they put an algorithm in place. They're totally capable of this, that actually did that. And then they took it away right after the election, which allowed January 6th, the lynch mob, to organize. And so we're saying this is not good for our brand. And they agree. And so we're trying to get them to, put these algorithms back in, because they should not be spreading misinformation and hate speech that's going to affect how people make decisions, because that's where people get their news. And it's a responsibility that they have. So that's a hard conversation, because they take it upstairs, and like I say, it's an authoritarian regime, and Mark's like, no,
Mm. Well, Andrew, of all the things that you're working on, kind of with my last few moments here with you, of all the things that you're working on and advocating for, what sustainability or ESG topic, would you like to see be covered more often, or, to have a deeper conversation on, or what would you want to bring to people's attention to say, hey, if there's one thing to really lean in on and learn more about, it's going to be this. You have one?
Well, the thing is, they're all interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
This is about a whole shift this is a shift the scale of the Industrial Revolution. This is a shift from an extractive economy, an extractive mindset, to a regenerative economy and a regenerative mindset. So this is, you think about climate change, but climate change is also environmental justice issues and racial justice issues. You look at what's going on in Cancer Alley. They're building 120 new petrochemical plants that are well, they call it Cancer Alley for a reason. And look at what's happening to nature and biodiversity and indigenous rights. And this is all one thing. This is about a transformation, again, from this extractive mindset that was based on, slavery is extracting people's work, extracting from the earth, as opposed to regenerative, which is treating people fairly, giving people, their rights, and treating your employees well, as well as, and from an energy standpoint, the abundance of the sun and the wind. So this is transformational. The philosophy is already set. Like I said, in 2019, all the companies agreed we want to move toward that direction. But now we're seeing this really intense, resistance, this regressive thinking, trying to stop the change, as opposed to saying, oh yeah, let's adopt this change and let's be part of this change. So it's, how do you get all the folks who are opposing this transformation to realize that it's actually to their benefit, that actually they have children and they have grandchildren too, and that they can help to create a glide path into this new, just a whole new way of thinking about everything, about the way we deliver healthcare, about the way we deliver education, about the way we take care of each other. We could feed everyone on this planet right now if we would stop using industrial farming techniques, which are poisoning more people than they're feeding. So it's a whole new way of thinking, and we have the technology to do it. That's the thing. We're there, if not for all this resistance of the folks who are really in power right now and who want to just retain that power, who feel threatened. And so it's a matter of them saying, oh, you know what? Yeah, that's like, it's going to be a much bigger pie. I'm going to have my slice. But everybody else can have, their portion too.
There's enough pie for everyone.
That's pie. Yeah.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much. I want to know, where do people go? Where's the best place for them to go? Just straight to the website, the As You Sow website, to stay informed, keep up with you?
So, and it's SOW, ASYOUSOW, as in As You Sow, so shallyereap.org, O-R-G, we're a nonprofit. And from there, you can click on Invest Your Values if you want to look at how to invest in mutual funds, all that. You can click on Racial Justice and see a scorecard on that. All of our reports, we've got dozens and dozens of reports in there. As You Vote is there if you want to, sign up to have your stuff. Yeah, it's all really centered in asyousow.org.
Great. Well, we'll put all the links here in the show notes. And again, thank you so much. Thanks for the work you guys are doing. Thanks for the work you're doing. Thanks for making time to be on the show and give us some insights and share your perspectives. Anything else to finish with or add?
No, thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew. All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon, and thanks again. Hey, thanks for checking out our show today. This show was produced by the team at thinkPARALLAX, a sustainability and communications agency with 2 decades of experience working with companies at every stage of the sustainability journey. We are experts at assessing where a company is today, defining a North Star, and developing a roadmap to get there. If your team needs sustainability guidance or training, or you have a recommendation for a guest or a topic on the show, visit us at thinkparallax.com. We'd love to hear from you.